Of photographs, each one a priceless record of the heroes who helped forge our nation. Lost for nearly 100 years, Sunday Night has found the Toulier collection, rumoured to be the greatest photographic record of our World War I diggers. And as you've never seen them before. Here's Ross Coulthart.
This chest, in a dusty attic in a distant corner of France, has been hidden away for 93 years. Few thought its precious treasure could ever have survived.
We found them. That's 2 Aussies in slouch hats.
They're Australians.
Australians, yes.
There's hundreds of them.
Ross, look. I recognise that face.
But this is just the start of the detective story.
Can we zoom in? You know who this bloke is?
Tonight, one of the great finds in Australian military history.
These are the men that gave us the whole legend. You know, these are the diggers.
We remember Gallipoli, but from 1916, the fields of France and Belgium were where most of our diggers fought and fell. Of the 330,000 Australians who came here to the Western Front to fight for king and country, 48,000 of them died. And yet for all that sacrifice, precious few images remain of the Australian fighting soldier here on the Western Front. At the Australian War Memorial, Peter Burness has spent nearly 4 decades searching for rare photos of Australians on the Western Front. 20 years ago, on a trip to France, he stumbled on a mystery. He saw this pamphlet full of photos of Australian diggers taken in the French village of Vignacourt, a day's march from the old front lines. The images were different to anything he'd seen before.
For me personally, as a historian, I find it very important because so much of the time of soldiers who were away for years was in these rear villages. This is their day-to-day life. This is how they lived, this is how they trained, this is how they prepared for the next battle and recovered from the last battle. It's sort of an unknown story.
This is obviously shot up against the same placard in this photograph.
Clearly that's a bit of a key or a signature to this photographer's work.
When he returned to Canberra, the mystery deepened. In the vaults of the War Memorial, he found a handful of photos with the same distinctive backdrop. Who had taken these striking images, and could there be more? He didn't know it at the time, but on the other side of the world, someone else was also on the hunt for the mysterious missing collection. "20 years ago, French historian Laurent Merouz saw similar pictures on the walls of the Vignacourt town hall.
I realized it was really unique. It was a treasure, really. It is a sort of pictures I've never seen elsewhere.
In 1916, Vignacourt was full of Allied troops, many of them young Australians fresh from Gallipoli. Watching them, Louis Toulier, a French soldier who'd returned to farming. He and his wife Antoinette were passionate photographers who opened their farm to the battle-weary boys and for a few extra francs took their photos.
What struck you about the photographs? Why did you find them interesting?
I found the quality of the pictures absolutely great technically, but also the portraits, I found them so natural, something very different than you used to see everywhere.
Laurent was shown a sample of the collection, but their hiding place stayed a secret. Realising their significance, he wrote and called the Australian Embassy in Paris, but unbelievably, they never called back. So, Laurent, let me get this right. You told the Australians and nobody answered.
Nobody answers, exactly. A dead end each time. I was very surprised, and I kept the story in mind, waiting for the right time to do something with it, and then you call.
We tracked Laurent down after hearing a rumour he knew of a secret collection. And together with Peter Burness, we hit the trail.
So much mystery has surrounded this collection, you know, and I suppose the last thing to solve is, do they still exist?
Bonjour, Madame Cronier. Je vous présente Rose Coulthard.
Our first stop is a delightful 81-year-old widow, Madame Cronier.
On y va?
Ok.
It was her husband, Robert, who developed the photos seen in this pamphlet and the prints seen on the walls of the town hall. So how had he found the secret collection?
Je me suis aperçue après. Oh,
Well,
il y a
Robert
encore des
was
plaques.
family, Louis Tullier's cousin.
On dit s'il vous plaît, Madame
S'il vous
Cronier.
plaît, Madame Cronier.
Oui, Monsieur Mirose. Connaît mieux les affaires que moi derrière la porte. Non.
So what's going on here, Laura?
She's maybe have something to show. Oh my goodness.
Can I...
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness, there we are. Ah, look at that. There's an Anzac. Wow.
It's an Australian.
Jesus, yeah.
Can't just hold it at the end there. Gosh, they're really sharp, aren't they? They're very high contrast.
They're very good quality, aren't they?
And how many of these do you have?
Moi?
In box after box, hundreds of glass
It's a
plates.
great one. Look at the jaunty,
isn't there?
jaunty ankle of the hat.
Classic Aussie.
Yeah, that's right.
These are beautiful.
C'est magnifique, c'est vrai. C'est
Je m'en
extraordinaire.
doute que pour eux, ça doit...
Yes, she can imagine that for you, Australian, it's something incredible.
Je pense qu'elles sont chez Baquet. Ils vont
C'est
les...
qui sont les héritiers de la famille.
And then this.
She said that the plates are still in Vignacourt, in the Louis Tuillier grandson and granddaughter, and they are still living, and they are still in Vignacourt.
Thousands of plates.
Thousands of plates. We are speaking of thousands of plates.
We were closer than we'd realised to finding the entire collection. This is the original home of Louis and Antoinette Tullier. At first, his remaining family are somewhat wary.
Bonjour, Monsieur Tuillier.
But Laurent persuades his grandson to meet us. It seems we've arrived in the nick of time. The farm is for sale, and everything in it is about to go under the hammer.
This is actually amazing. It's just like it was 90 years ago.
Frozen in time.
This barn was Louis' studio, though the painted backdrop is long gone.
His grandfather was interested with everything new. He was a modern man, a modern mind. This is why he was in.
So you had this hobby.
It was a new hobby for him.
Christian Tullier is a lawyer. He listens carefully to our arguments about the value of his grandfather's plates to history and to Australia. Finally, we put it to him directly. Do the plates still exist?
Il y a des plaques dans le grenier qui est ici.
Yes, we are in the attic here.
They're actually here.
Yes, exactly. They are here.
Can we see them?
Est-ce qu'on peut les voir?
Mais bien entendu.
No problem.
But right now, let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
I love this.
Suivez-moi.
We're led up stairways to an attic. There, in the corner, is this chest.
Oh, my goodness. Peter, you're not going to believe this. A treasure chest.
There's boxes of them.
If I'm not mistaken, that's two Aussies in slouch hats.
They're Australians.
Australians, yes.
And there's hundreds of them. Look at it. That is just wonderful. What a find.
This is it, the entire lost collection.
Even more.
And so many of them young Australians.
It's incredible that they've actually survived 95 years if they were taken in 1916, as you're suggesting. 95 years.
That's right. We're moving towards the centenary of these battles. These are the men that gave us the whole legend. You know, these are the diggers.
I love the informality of it.
Even the pose is Australian, isn't it?
Yeah. We found them. Yeah. Mr. Thillier, thank you. Congratulations. Wow, is that a kid?
This is an amazing one. This is this lovely thing of this interaction with the locals. You know, a small child amongst these tough soldiers.
So what are you thinking as you're looking at these?
Well, you're looking at looking back in time, really, aren't you? You're seeing, looking into the eyes of men who have been in battle.
But they had another few years of hell ahead of them, didn't they?
Indeed, they did, and quite a few battles to go.
Oh, look at those guys. They're so young. I think we'll just have to lift
And
it up
another
this way.
discovery awaits us.
Wait, yep.
Okay.
A photographer's canvas backdrop. But after all these years, is it the canvas?
I think it is, Peter.
Oh, yes, I can, look, you can recognise
I think after nearly 100 years...
There's the arch.
Just think of the young Australian soldiers that stood in front of this on their way from battle. This was the backdrop that was part of the mystery, wasn't it?
That's right, and it was the backdrop that was identifying where these photographs were from. So if we saw this backdrop in a photograph, we knew it was from this collection.
On this farm, a day's march from the front line, thousands of Aussies found a welcome respite from the trenches and the killing.
For a few brief weeks, it was a chance for a bit of R&R here in Vignacourt, for a bit of fun. And that's exactly what comes through in these extraordinary photographs. And you know, you want to know about them. You want to know their stories. You want to know, did they survive? Did they come back? Did they have family? Do they have descendants today who might be really interested to see these
Well, that's
photographs?
right. Some people would be thrilled to see these photographs if they only knew they had a relative amongst them.
Isn't it incredible, though, that they've sat in an attic?
Incredible, incredible indeed.
And this historic discovery is just part of the story. Next up, we go looking for the Aussie families of some of the young diggers.
Ross, look. Oh, I recognise that face, and look at the medal ribbons.
Wow.
There's no doubt that those eyes have seen some hard fighting.
I'm getting tingling now. This is exciting.
It's one of the very few places left on Earth that is so untouched. There's no...
I think when I look at
The German barrows, the artillery fire was just so heavy that the Australians were subjected to this for day after day. Men went mad under that barrage. They had to lie there with their comrades shattered to pieces, expecting the next shell to do the same to them. It was really an appalling carnage.
And it was those young men that came to Vignacourt after those
Indeed,
battles.
indeed it was.
Who are these young men? So brave, so very Australian, courageous, even cheeky.
Ah, this is one of my favourites. We want our mummy. Look at the bloke with the glass of wine and...
In Australia, our investigation begins.
I like the look of this one. So what's his story? Who's this bloke?
He's there with his rifle, bayonet, muddy boots, and his ammunition pouches are still heavy with ammunition.
So he literally walked in off the front line.
Yes, that's right.
Historian Peter Burness is looking for clues, medals, rank, ribbons, insignia that may identify the men.
Tell me what you can tell about him from just looking at that photograph.
He's a sergeant, a decorated soldier. He's in the trench mortar battery in the 1st Division. There's no doubt that those eyes have seen some hard fighting, because once again, this man wears the ribbon of the Military Medal for Bravery.
And then,
Ross, look.
our first breakthrough.
And that's surely Joe Maxwell, the
Do you
BC
know?
winner.
You can actually pick him.
Well, I recognise that face, and look at the medal ribbons. It's surely him.
We think the small man on the bottom right of this photo is one of the giants of our military history. Joe Maxwell, the bravest of the brave, awarded the Victoria Cross.
Well, I know about his bravery in the First World War, rushing machine gun nests to protect men, exploits behind enemy lines, those sorts of things, taking charge when everyone else in his company or all the other commanders in his company had been killed and there was no one else to lead men. It's sort of become family folklore over the years.
Steve is Joe Maxwell's grandson.
Do you have any photographs of him from his service time in France?
No, I've seen some photographs of him when he signed up and identifying photographs as a young man. There's only a handful of them. Most of the photographs that I've seen of Joe have been as an older man, as a veteran.
For almost 100 years, this image of Joe and his mates has lain forgotten in France. Joy is Joe's daughter,
I'm getting tingling.
and joy is what she's feeling.
This is exciting.
I hope you can pick it.
Oh, look at that.
The incredible thing about it, how clear it is. That's taken off a glass plate that sat in an attic for 90 years.
Oh, there he is. That's Joe.
You're absolutely sure?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank heavens for that.
They're also young.
Isn't it? Oh.
Joe never talked much about the war, and when he did, he usually made a joke of it. But that changed when Joy gave birth to Steve.
When he was only a baby, Joe said, and the first serious thing I think I remember him saying, Joy, you must promise me you'll never allow him to go to war. And I think that brought home the horror to me.
In this French farmhouse, the horror was briefly left behind. Antoinette Tullier took most of the photos, and perhaps that's why the men look so relaxed and informal.
They're candid shots. They're not the sort of photographs we're used to seeing from official photographers. You have to remember that Australia didn't have an official photographer for the first year on the Western Front.
Dare I say, I think some of the Aussie blokes are flirting with the camera woman.
The Aussie blokes flirted with all the French women. They flirted with the young girls, they played with the kids. This was what a town like Vignacourt gave them, was a normality when they came out of the line. The madness, the insanity, the tragedy, the misery of war in the trenches, to come back to a normal little town where the rhythm of life was normal. Of course, they became part of the town. I think these photographs rank up there with one of the most important discoveries from the First World War.
And yet, they were very nearly lost to history.
That would have been a tragedy. To lose something like this, which is really a window on our past.
Nearly a century on, we're seeing these men for the first time. Australia's sons as they'd like to be remembered. Now, the task ahead is to find their families.
For anyone who's got a link to that First World War and a direct link to that First World War, to be able to see a member of their family in action, as it were, or at least close to where they were actually fighting, to actually see them in situ in that part of the world, unedited, unrestricted, unsuppressed, I think is going to mean a lot for a lot of people.
Great stuff. And Sunday Night has secured nearly 500 photographs from the original glass plates belonging to the Tullier collection. We now intend on giving them all to the Australian War Memorial.
But the rest of the collection is still sitting in that dusty attic, waiting for a generous benefactor or the federal government to step in and save it for the nation. We'll keep you informed.
And we also need your help to put names to the faces of these young men, which is why we've set up a Facebook page with all the photos we have. One of your relatives may be among them.
Just search for The Lost Diggers on Facebook or go to our website, where you'll also find a blog from Ross Coulthart. After the break, a spectacle you won't want to miss. Sonia Kruger in the land of the hippos.
Don't hesitate to charge down and attack humans. And as Sonia Kruger discovered, they get particularly cranky at the end of the dry season.
It's one of the very few places left on Earth that is so untouched, totally untouched. I mean, it's a stronghold of nature.
A rare place at a rare moment in time. A time of change. This wild African river is home to the world's largest population of hippos. And a battle for survival is about to unfold.
Lack of food. There's hardly any water left in the river, virtually no grass for the animals to feed on. This is crisis time for everything.